You believe you fail because you lack talent, time, or capital. You are wrong. You fail because you actively build systems that protect your mediocrity. Every morning, you wake up and confirm a contract with safety. You tell yourself that working 80 hours a week inside an unscalable model will eventually compound into freedom. You believe effort creates value. You believe sweat guarantees equity. These assumptions are incorrect scientifically, mathematically, and historically. If raw physical labor produced wealth, the ditch digger would own the city. If continuous movement produced strategic dominance, the frantic worker would control the market. They do not. Look at the mechanics. Why do 80-hour work weeks routinely produce bankrupt operators, while too precise decisions create sovereign empires? The answer sits in structural leverage. You refuse greatness because greatness demands that you abandon the emotional comfort of visible effort. You prefer the exhaustion of manual labor over the terror of intellectual accountability. Take a blank sheet of paper. Draw 2 columns. On the left side, write down the 5 actions that consumed your time yesterday. On the right side, write down the exact financial or strategic return those actions generated. Look at the left column. You answered 40 electronic messages. You attended 3 coordination meetings. You adjusted the color palette on a digital document. You organized your desk. You felt productive. Your nervous system registered high engagement. Now look at the right column. The yield is 0. The leverage is 0. The enterprise value gained is 0. You spent 10 hours converting biological energy into operational noise. You believe you are working. The market knows you are hiding. In mechanical engineering, when an engine converts 90% of its fuel into heat and only 10% into torque, engineers do not celebrate the heat. They identify the engine as defective. They measure the friction. They re-engineer the combustion chamber. Yet in your daily operation, you celebrate the heat. You brag about your fatigue. You point to your exhaustion as evidence of virtue. Exhaustion is not a metric of success. Exhaustion is a diagnostic signal of bad architecture. Why does an operator choose friction over leverage? Because linear effort carries 0 emotional risk. If you work 14 hours on limp-packed administrative tasks, society praises your work ethic. If the business fails, you can blame the economy, the platform, the algorithm, or the lack of capital. You maintain your identity as a diligent martyr. To choose leverage is to remove your excuses. When you build an asymmetric system, a software tool, a distribution channel, a media asset, an automated capital allocation protocol, the outcome depends entirely on your judgment. If the judgment is flawed, the system produces 0, and there is no manual labor to hide behind. You stand naked in front of reality. You refuse greatness because you fear that exposure. Consider the physics of a physical lever. Archimedes stated that with a lever long enough and a fulcrum strong enough, one man could move the earth. Look at the components of that statement. The force applied by the man does not change. The biological output is constant. What changes is the distance between the fulcrum and the load. Your life is an unbroken attempt to lift the load. With your bare hands, while standing right next to it, you demand more strength from your muscles. You drink more stimulants. You wake up at 4 in the morning to pull harder on an immovable stone. Stop pulling on the stone. Step back and construct the lever. What constitutes the lever in modern execution? For assets provide structural leverage, capital code, media, and labor. Labor is the oldest and weakest form of leverage. Managing people creates immense internal friction. Communication protocols degrade. Human error introduces variance. Capital is better. Money works across time zones without sleep. It compounds through mathematics rather than biology. Code and media are the ultimate modern levers. They possess zero marginal cost of replication. You record a thesis once, and 10 million minds process the information simultaneously. You write a program once, and 10 million servers execute the logic without additional input. Yet you continue to trade your biological hours for linear compensation. You exchange 1 hour of physical presence for 1 unit of currency. This is a catastrophic trade. Your biological hours are finite, non-renewable, and decaying. Currency is infinitely printable. You are trading the ultimate scarce asset for an abundant commodity at a fixed ratio. Why do you accept this trade? Because schools trained you to operate as an interchangeable component in an industrial machine. Industrial systems require predictability. They reward compliance. They punish variance. They teach you to answer questions rather than formulate problems. They train you to pass standardized tests where every problem has a predetermined solution. Reality does not operate on standardized tests. In the open market, all outsized returns come from non-consensus truths. If everyone agrees with your thesis, the opportunity is already priced out. The margins have already collapsed to zero. Greatness requires you to be both non-consensus and right. Look at how you make decisions. When a new challenge appears, your immediate instinct is to seek consensus. You ask your peers, you read the standard manuals, you copy the actions of your competitors. By doing so, you guarantee an average result. You eliminate the possibility of catastrophe, but you also eliminate the possibility of asymmetric victory. Think about a standard concrete bridge. Why do modern bridges rarely collapse from extreme loads, yet slowly crumble over 40 years? They crumble because of microfractures caused by continuous low-level environmental stress. Rust attacks the internal rebar. Water freezes inside micropores. The decline is invisible day to day, but absolute over decades. Your career does not fail through massive, dramatic bankruptcies. It fails through the slow accumulation of comfortable, low-leverage routines. You accept an average salary. You tolerate an average partner. You surround yourself with people whose primary ambition is to reach retirement without conflict. Every single day, you reinforce the microfractures of mediocrity. Break the cycle through structural inversion. First, conduct a ruthless operational audit. Open your calendar. For the next 14 days, categorize every 60-minute block into one of 3 buckets: execution, optimization, or maintenance. Maintenance tasks keep the baseline alive, replying to routine mail, paying invoices, cleaning files. Maintenance creates zero growth. Cap maintenance at 20% of your time. If it requires more, automate the process with software or eliminate the task entirely. Optimization tasks improve existing systems, refining a conversion rate, training a core operator, upgrading hardware. Optimization yields linear growth. Allocate 30% of your time to optimization. The remaining 50% must belong entirely to execution of asymmetry. These are actions where the downside is fixed and small, but the upside is uncapped and compounding. Writing foundational intellectual property. Structuring partnerships with sovereign distribution. Designing systems that operate without your presence. If your current calendar shows less than 30% allocated to asymmetric execution, you do not have a strategy. You have an administrative prison. Second, eliminate optionality. Society tells you to keep your options open. That is bad advice designed for bureaucrats. When you keep all options open, you commit zero capital and zero focus to any single front. You spread your force across a wide perimeter. In military strategy, a force that defends everything defends nothing. A concentration of force at a single decisive point breaks the enemy line. Identify your single highest leverage capability. Strip away every peripheral project. Stop launching side ventures that distract from your primary engine. Starve the distractions to feed the main lever. Third, change your relationship with friction. When you sit down to perform deep asymmetric work, your brain experiences acute psychological friction. It demands that you check your messages. It invents sudden domestic emergencies. It convinces you that you need to read one more book before you begin. Understand what that friction is. It is not an obstacle, it is the compass. The friction you feel is the metabolic cost of your brain breaking old neurological pathways to construct new structural leverage. When you retreat to easy, reactive tasks, you relieve the friction, but you surrender the ground. Train yourself to lean directly into that operational resistance. When the work feels confusing, dense, and emotionally demanding, stay in the chair. That specific resistance is the barrier that stops 99% of your competition. If it were easy, the asset would have zero strategic value. Look at your hands. Look at your desk. Look at the balance sheet of your enterprise. No external force is coming to restructure your time. No superior authority will grant you permission to abandon low-value labor. The market does not care about your good intentions, your fatigue, or your unfulfilled potential. It only measures the output of your architecture. Greatness is not an emotional state. It is not a genetic gift. It is an engineering discipline. You must dismantle the machine that keeps you safe. You must accept the exposure of personal accountability. You must stop honoring raw effort and start demanding ruthless leverage. The choice is simple. You can continue to produce heat, or you can build an engine that moves the world. Choose now.